blessed to have Enes, and it's been great to talk to him over the last evening and today. He's so sweet and has such a heart for America, which is very rare and interesting in this day and age. And that's what drew us to him in the very beginning. The fact that even changing his last name to Freedom, and the fact that our ministry is standing free. And I've been having kind of conversations with him today about what is the foundation of Western civilization, what gives us this freedom that we have today. I'm saying it's the Bible, and we're going back and forth on this a little bit because he is a Muslim, and so I want to recognize and mention that. But his heart is really for the West, and what he's told us is that he has a heart for the radical Islamists to change their mind on the West and Israel. He does believe in Israel's right to exist. He appreciates Israel. He appreciates America. And what was so interesting is when everybody else was kneeling for the flag during the BLM times and those things, he goes, I came from an oppressive country. I can show you what a real dictatorship is like. Let's stand up and uphold America and the freedom that we have. And that's the message that we want to share with peace, with the freedom that we enjoy here in the West, which I say is because of the Bible and Christianity. But I'm still bringing him around on that point. But he's been so fun to talk to and everything, and we know how much he appreciates being an American now. He became an American in 2021, changed his last name to Freedom. I mean, how cool is that to have a Freedom jersey? I mean, that's not just printed, that's actually his name. You didn't just get the fun name on the back. It's actually real. And it was funny, because when I was, researching Enes and everything, it's so funny because all the headlines, NBA distances itself from freedom. NBA speaks out against freedom. NBA doesn't like freedom. NBA kicks freedom out. And so how much of that we see in today's day and age. But just a brief bio here of Enes, because he has such a cool background in history coming from Turkey. But Enes Kanter Freedom, an NBA star, human rights activist, Nobel Peace Prize nominee, and now New York Times best-selling author who sacrificed his family, career, and home to speak out against human rights violations around the world. Born in Switzerland and raised in Turkey, Freedom bravely called out human rights abuses by Erdogan in his home country. In response, Turkey canceled his passport, placed his name on an Interpol list, banned communication with his family, imprisoned and tortured his father, placed a $500,000 bounty on his head. The Turkish government effectively issued an international arrest warrant for Freedom. Isn't that funny? Putting an international arrest warrant out for Freedom. During a visit to Indonesia in 2017, Freedom narrowly escaped a government attempt to kidnap him and return him to Turkey. Later that year, he was detained and arrested at a Bucharest airport by the Romanian government. But over the course of 9 years, Freedom has faced 12 arrest warrants and countless death threats for his activism. After unveiling his anti-CCP shoes during a 2021 NBA season opener, every Boston Celtics game was instantly banned at halftime in China and Turkey for his outspoken criticism of the CCP. In 2022, 5 years after having his citizenship revoked, Enes Kanter proudly became a U.S. citizen, changing his name to Freedom. In spite of his advocacy, the NBA traded Freedom from the Celtics to the Houston Rockets in 2022, only to be released by the Rockets 3 minutes later. The NBA has been hesitant to sign him due to his outspoken criticism of China, attempting to silence him in the process and resulting in a financial loss of almost $50 million. For Enes Kanter Freedom, the fight for freedom comes at a big cost, but his dedication to human rights around the world is unwavering. Freedom is not free, and let's hear from Enes Kanter Freedom in the name of freedom.
Wow, that was a very warm welcome. That was the cutest thing I've ever seen, by the way. Congratulations. Well, I just want to say I'm really excited, really humbled and honored to be here. This is actually my second time in church, ever. I'll tell you guys about my first time at the End of our conversation. But I want to actually start with my childhood because people keep questioning about why do I love America so much? Why do I care about the Western values? Why do I care about, you know, the Western values so much? Actually, I wasn't this way when I was growing up. So I grew up in Turkey. I'm born in Switzerland. I grew up in Turkey, and I remember, in Middle East, if you are a politician and if you want to be re-elected again, you do a couple things. You attack America, you attack the West, you attack Christian people, you attack Jewish people. And unfortunately, the base is so uneducated. They believe everything that comes out of those politicians' mouth. So I was 9 years old, right? I went downstairs to play with my friends. And my friends were not even teenagers. They were burning American flags. They were breaking crosses. And I remember asking one of my friends, I'm like, guys, what are you doing? They said, well, we should hate America. We should hate the Christians. We should hate the Jewish people. They're evil people. I was like, okay. And they gave me a flag to burn it. They gave me an American flag. They gave me a lighter. And they said, burn it. So I looked down. I'm like, this is not a right thing to do. So I threw the flag down. I went upstairs to my mom. I was like, Mom, my friends are telling me they hate America. They're telling me they hate Christian people, hate Jewish people. Like, what do I do? My mom said, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but do not hate anyone for me. So that day, I gave a promise to my mom. I was like, whatever it costs, whatever happens, I'm not going to hate anyone for me. The environment that I was growing up in was getting more and more toxic every day. This doesn't happen in Turkey, but in some of the countries in Middle East. So in schools, front of classes, you have an American flag. And if you don't step on those flags, you're not even allowed to attend the class. So think about it. And you will get bullied. If you don't step on those flags, you will get bullied, right? You will get bullied the rest of the school year by your classmate, by your teacher, whoever. So think about an environment like that. And it was getting more and more toxic every day. I remember I was 17 years old, and I finally, my family, especially my dad, was like finally said, well, enough is enough, you're going to America. I even remember asking my dad, I was like, Dad, you really want me to go to Devil's Nest? He said, go and see it yourself. I said, okay. So I left Turkey as a teenager, all by myself, came to America for the first time ever, right? My plane was about to land. About to land in New York, and I saw the Statue of Liberty. It was a beautiful moment, but I'm very excited but nervous at the same time, because for the last 17 years, all I hear about how terrible this country is, right? And anyway, my plane landed, and I feel like 1 or 2 days I started to, during my first high school practice. And after the practice, I'm just sitting down with my teammates. I'm about to leave the locker room. 2 of my teammates who are Christians, by the way. They came up to me. They said, listen, we know that you just got here, and we know that you're Muslim. Would you like for us to take you to a mosque, and we can go get some halal food after? I turned around and left the locker room. I was so nervous, because I just didn't know what they were trying to do. Anyway, while I was about to leave the locker room, right, I remember the promise that I gave to my mom. Anyway, I turned around, I was like, what I have to do, let's go. First, they took me to a mosque. They were so respectful. They took their shoes off, they waited for me to pray, and then after that, we went to go get some halal food. And then after that, I was like, listen, whatever you need, just let us know, we got you. That too, I cannot thank them enough, because that too of my teammates were Christians. Was the first time that they put that little question mark in my head. I started to question everything that I've been learning in Turkey over the last 17 years. After that, my teammate I went to actually high school in Cedar Valley, California, and then after that I went to college at University of Kentucky, and I got drafted by Utah Jazz. And my mom was super happy when I got drafted by Utah Jazz because it was obviously everybody full of Mormons. No clubs, no bars, no alcohol, no parties. Everything shut down at like 8, 9 p.m. So my mom was super happy. And then when I was 19 years old, after I got drafted, we had this huge event. And I met with this girl who was a really good friend, actually still my good friend, is my good friend. And we became really good friends. She was helping with my English. She was helping me with so many things. And I remember one day, she invited me for dinner. I was like, well, she asked me, like, are you free Friday to come have dinner with us? I was like, I'm busy Friday, but I can come Thursday. She was like, no, it has to be Friday. I was like, what do you mean? Why not Thursday? I was like, well, because we do our special dinner on Friday. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, Fridays we have our huge meal that we eat. It's called Shabbat. I was like, what's a Shabbat? He said, well, just because we're Jewish, I hung up the phone. As soon as I heard the word Jewish, immediately I hung up the phone. And I'm like, I threw my phone. I'm like, I cannot believe it. Christians are okay, sure, but like talking to a Jew, I'm like, oh my God, like, am I going to hell? I'm serious. Like, am I going to hell? And then that night I couldn't sleep because in one hand, I give a promise to my mom, right? Whatever happens, then I'm just gonna, give it a chance. But then in the other hand, I'm like, no way. Like, having become friends with a Jew, I was like, there's no way. Anyway, that night I maybe slept for like 2 hours. And then after that, the next morning, I called her. I was like, listen, I'm only coming because I give a promise to my mom, but I want to tell you 2 things. I don't drink, and I don't eat pork. He's like, good, we're Jewish, we don't eat pork either. So Friday hit. Before I went to her house, I called one of my friends in America. I was like, listen, I'm gonna go to one of my friend's house. And he was like, why are you calling me about that? I was like, well, because she's Jewish. And he started to yell at me, are you crazy? What are you doing? They eat babies, they drink blood. You are crazy. You should not. I was like, listen, I give a promise to my mom, I have to go. Anyway, so I was like, but I just want one thing from you. He's like, what is it? He's like, if you don't hear from me for the next 2 hours, call the police. Anyway, so I went to her house. Before I walked into her house, she kissed her and she hit the door. I was like, what are you doing, you weirdo? He was like, oh, this is called mezuzah. It's a prayer that protects us. So we have the same thing. Anyway, I walk into her house, and I'm just like looking everywhere, right? Like, what's going to happen? Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to say? Anyway, before we started to eat dinner, her dad just break the bread and start to pray and stuff. They poured that red liquid on the thing. I'm like, okay, this is the blood. Right? And she looked at me weird. She was like, this is a grape juice, man. Just lie, you can just drink it. Anyway, I had the most special night that night. It was the most special dinner that night. Her mom actually sent me over with a Turkish delight. It was so delicious. When I left her house, I started to get very emotional. The reason is, there are so many millions of kids in the Middle East growing up anti-Semitic, anti-West, anti-Christian, anti-American, just because of those hate speeches. So Islam itself is not the problem. It's those corrupt politicians who uses religion to brainwash people so they can be reelected again. I was like, whatever happens from now on, I'm just going to dedicate myself to inspire those millions of kids in the Middle East so they can see the truth. And then after I got drafted, I started to play basketball in the NBA. And for the first couple of years, all I cared about was just playing basketball and having fun with my teammates, It was an amazing, amazing time. For my first 3 years was amazing. And then after that, my 3rd year in NBA, there was a huge corruption scandal happening in Turkey. President Erdogan is a Turkish dictator. President Erdogan and his family members were involved in it. And obviously, as a basketball player, I do follow what's going on in my country and stuff. And I remember, after he got caught, he was going around and putting innocent people in jail. He was putting, prosecutors, judges. He was putting journalists in jail. He was shutting down media outlets. And I was like, I don't care who you are, but if you are fighting against free media, I'm going to say something. So as a basketball player, right, I put a tweet out there. Because an NBA platform became a huge conversation in the United States, in Turkey, and I was like, even one simple tweet can affect this much. From now on, I'm just going to start pay attention to what's going on in my country more and more. So I started studying. The more I study, the more I realize there's so much things that are happening over there. It needs to be taught. And I started to do a lot of interviews that really bothered the Turkish government. They sent so many messages to my family, and they warned them so many times. My dad was one of the biggest scientists in Turkey. First, they fired him. Second, my sister, she went to medical school for 6 years and she still cannot find a job till this day. I think the saddest one was my little brother, because he wanted to be like me. He wanted to be like his big brother, play basketball in NBA, but he was getting kicked out of every team because of the same last name. So they were getting affected so much, they had to put a statement out there and said, we are disowning Enes publicly. I remember going to a practice that day. It was one of the toughest days of my life. After that, Turkish government didn't believe that. They sent police to my house in Turkey and they raided the whole house. And they took every electronics away. Phones, computers, laptops, iPads, because they wanted to see if I am still in contact with my family or not. They couldn't find no evidence, right? They still took my dad in jail for a while. But we put so much pressure from here with politicians, with media, to Turkey, they had to let him go. After my dad got out, I asked my brother, how's he doing? Because if you're someone who's not a high profile, the Erdogan's government, Erdogan's regime will torture you in those jails. But if you're someone that is a high profile, they give you chemicals to mess up with your brain. So when my dad got out, I asked my brother, how's he doing? And he's like, he doesn't act the same way. He watches the walls all day long. And when we ask him, what happened there, he never talks about it. And then after that, I'm sure you guys heard it on my biography, they revoked my passport. They put my name on Interpol list. I'm now only allowed to go to 29 countries in the world. If I go in any other country, I will be extradited back to Turkey. Even when I had a conversation with some of the people in the State Department, they said, I'm not even allowed to go over their airspace, because when you do that, they call the plane down, they said there's a bomb in the plane. They bring the plane down, they do a little fake search, they let the plane go, but they arrest the guy. So I'm not even allowed to go over their airspace. When I had a basketball camp in Jerusalem, which I'm going to talk about soon, I had to go around Turkey, so I don't go over their airspace. Anyway, 2022, I had an honor to meet the Pope. After that, obviously became viral because NBA player and Pope together became a huge conversation. Literally the next day, they put a bounty on my head. And I had a conversation with the FBI. They said, listen, this will trigger so many bad people. Wherever you are, you have to come to America immediately. So, throughout all this, right, NBA really supported me. NBA had my back in every step I took. Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, came out and supported me so many times. And that actually gave me so much hope, so much motivation to fight against the dictatorship of Turkey. So back in 2000, I'm trying to think, back back in 2021. I'm doing a basketball camp in New York. And after the basketball camp, every kid just line up one by one, and I'm just like giving autographs and taking pictures and stuff, right? And I remember I took a picture with this kid. His parent called me out in front of everybody. He said, "How can you call yourself a human rights activist when your Muslim brothers and sisters are getting tortured and raped every day in concentration camp in China?" And I'm still smiling for the camera. I turned around after the picture. I was like, "Sir, I promise I'm going to get back to you." So that day I canceled everything. I'm back to my hotel. I started to study about what's going on over there. For the last 10 years, my plate was so full. Last time I see my family was 11 years ago. So my plate was so full. We've been trying to bring him over here, but we failed every time because of the dictatorship over there. But I couldn't really focus on other dictatorships. But I started to study about what's going on over there. And the more I studied, the more I realized, Tibetans, Hong Kongers, Taiwanese people, I'm just trying to think, Falun Gongs, Mongolians, Uyghurs, they're all having persecution by the Chinese Communist Party. I was like, I called my manager. I was like, "Listen, this is a weird request, but I need you to find me a concentration camp survivor in China." He said, "This is the weirdest request I've ever got." I was like, "Sure, I'll try to find you one." So he found me one. It was a lady. We sit down. We had this 1-hour conversation with her, right? And she told me about all the torture methods. She told me about all the gang raping and all the torture. Like, it was the most horrifying thing I've ever heard in my life. At the end of our conversation, I asked her, like, "What do you want from me? What can I do to help?" She said, "Nothing." I was like, "What do you mean nothing?" She said, "I live in America. I live a pretty good life in here. I'm very comfortable. I can eat whatever I want. I can say whatever I want. Help those 2-3 billion people who are in concentration camps getting tortured every day." I said, "Okay." So I could have just gone on one of those news channels, right? I could have just tweeted about it. I could have given an interview, but I wanted to do it in a very unique way. When I was a kid, I grew up as a Lakers fan. Played for the Celtics. It feels a little weird to be a Lakers fan. Anyway, whenever I watched those Lakers games, the first thing I was looking at was the shoes. So I came up with this crazy idea. I was like, I'm going to start creating these shoes. I'm going to first reach out to all these artists around the world who's been, persecuted by their government. And I'm going to ask them to put all the struggles on the shoes, and I'm just going to go out there and play basketball. I think it was 2 months, we looked, there is no rule against it. There is no rule in NBA against it. Why? Because back in 2020, when NBA, during COVID, NBA took us to this thing called the NBA bubble. I'm sure you guys heard about it. All these players, they were putting on their shoes Black Lives Matter, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Black Revolution, and blah, blah, right? I was like, if they are allowed and able to put those on their shoes, I should be allowed to put free Tibet, free Uyghurs, STEM in Hong Kong, stop organ harvesting, right? So I was playing for Boston Celtics. Our first game was against the New York Knicks at Madison Square Garden, season opener. Literally every celebrity you can think of was at that game, nationally televised. And my first shoes I created was free Tibet. So I put the shoes on, and I went out there and started to warm up. Literally 1 minute before the game, 1 minute, the game hasn't started yet. I'm literally we sang the national anthem, and now we are in the team huddle. The game hasn't started yet. 2 gentlemen from the NBA, they came up to me. They said, "Listen, your shoes has been getting so much attention internationally. Obviously, it was from China. You have to take your shoes off. Go back to the locker room, change your shoes, and do not come out till you change your shoes." I was shocked because we keep talking, we keep bragging about our freedom, right? And these two gentlemen literally telling me to take my shoes off. I was like, am I breaking any rules? They said, no, but we've been getting so much pressure, you gotta take them off. For me, it was the perfect moment because I was just getting ready for my citizenship test, right? So this is what I did. I closed my eyes, I was like, okay, we have 27 amendments, right? In my first amendment, freedom of speech, I opened my eyes, I was like, no, I'm not taking them off. They said, buddy, I was like, I don't even care if I get fined, I'm not gonna take them off. They said, buddy, we're not talking about fine, we're talking about getting banned. They were literally threatening me to get banned just because of my word of shoes that was against Chinese Communist Party. Anyway, so I didn't take them off. We played the first half. I went to the locker room. I looked at my phone, there was thousands of notifications. I clicked on the one that my manager sent me. He said, every Boston Celtics game is banned in China. It took them 24 minutes, the first quarter, 12 minutes, the second quarter, 12 minutes. It took them 24 minutes to ban every Boston Celtics game on television, which Boston Celtics is one of the biggest teams in NBA. I was like, well, that clearly shows the dictatorship and the censorship over there. Anyway, that helped me a lot. And the second half, I went out there, right, and I did not play a minute, which I played every game before that. Somehow, that game, I played 0 minutes. We lost the game, obviously. So after the game, right, I was getting media requests from all over the world. Like literally even from the country that I've never even heard of. I told my manager, cancel everything. Why? Because I just didn't want my teammates to think that I'm doing this for attention. So we canceled everything. After the game, after the first game, the NBPA called the Player Association, in which I paid thousands of dollars every month to protect my rights against NBA. So they're supposed to work for me. Anyway, they said, listen, man, you know what you did. You cannot wear the shoes ever again. We're gonna get so much pressure from the NBA. Stop it. I asked them, like, am I breaking any rules? They said, no, but you know exactly what you did. They pressured me so much. They said, I promise you guys, I am not gonna wear free Tibet shoes ever again. They said, promise? I said, promise, I ain't got the phone. So the second game, I wore free Uyghur shoes. They called me after the second game, they said, you're a liar, you lied to us, how could you do that to us? I was like, I never lied to you. I never said I'm not gonna wear free Uyghur shoes, I just said I'm just not gonna wear free Tibet shoes. So the third game, right, it was against Charlotte, the Charlotte Hornets. Who owned Charlotte? Michael Jordan, the GOAT. I was like, I gotta do something so crazy. I really wanted to expose Nike's hypocrisy. Why? Because Nike, look what Nike is doing in America. They stand with Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ community, Latino community, no Asian hate, but everybody knows about the sweatshops and the slave laborers back in China. So, and they pay they pay billions of dollars. There are many athletes out there which sign lifetime billions of dollars of contract, like LeBron James, whatever. They pay those athletes billions of dollars to shut up about the things that are happening in China, but to talk about the problems that are happening in America. I was like, I gotta expose them. So I ordered Michael Jordan shoes, the most famous shoes. It's called Kanter. If you guys are sneakerhead, you guys know about them. So I ordered them, right? And I wore, and I put made with slave labor. And the third game, I don't know how, right? I don't know how. Just coach called me again. Our big man got in foul trouble. Coach looked again, and he said, "Freedom, let's go." And I checked in the game. I promise you, before I checked in the game, I just turned around and looked. Michael Jordan was watching the game. His hand was on his face. I was like, yes, I love it. I played like a couple minutes, they took me out immediately. After the third game, after that game, I walked in the locker room, right? All my teammates, they were giving me hugs, they were shaking my hand, and they were telling me, dude, have fun this year, because this is your last year in the NBA. You're never, ever gonna be able to dribble a basketball on an NBA court ever again. I was like, well, I thought we have freedom in this country. What happened? You know? They said, there are two things that you cannot do. Criticize China, criticize Nike. You do those things, you cannot play basketball ever again. So after the third game, my agent called me. And he said, dude, listen, I work for you, I don't work for the NBA, so I gotta be honest with you. I think it's too late, but my job is still to tell you what's going on. If you say another word about China or Nike, you're 29 years old, you're not throwing away you can play till 35 years old, so you're not only throwing away your 6 years of NBA career, you're throwing away between $45 to $50 million. If you want to do it, keep going. I hang up the phone, I know it's all coming again. So, before February, which was a trade deadline, I played my last game against the Brooklyn Nets. Coach put me in the game the last few minutes. I actually scored, and after the game in the locker room, everyone giving me my last hugs, and they were shaking my hands, and I actually got the game ball, you know? They were just literally telling me goodbye. The next day was a trade deadline. I had a conversation with one of my teammates and said, listen, two ways. You're either going to get traded and they're going to release you and you're never going to play basketball ever again, or they're just going to release you. There's no other way. So just be prepared for it. The next day, they traded me from Boston Celtics to Houston Rockets. And the Houston Rockets literally released me probably less than 3 minutes. And that was it. That was it. After I got released, I got called up by some of our lawmakers in DC, both sides, Democrats and Republicans. And they were obviously, I gave a 5-minute talk, and they were asking me questions. And right before they were about to end the hearing, I just have one question for you guys. They said, what is it? I was like, you guys keep bragging about our freedom, right? I just have one question. How can the biggest dictatorship in the world can control 100% made American organization like the NBA and can fire a US citizen? Go ahead and answer, please. There was this moment of silence for like at least 2-3 minutes. They looked around each other and they couldn't answer, and then one of them got up and said, sorry, we have no answer for you. And they just left. It's a tough road. It's a very lonely, tough road. People keep talking about me losing $40-50 million and me losing my career, but there was nothing against losing my family, you know? But throughout all this, you know, people keep asking me, like, where do you find this motivation, right? I can proudly say that I became an American citizen back in 2021. And that was the most proudest moment in my life, literally. Obviously, like everyone should, I followed the process. I got my green card first, and then after I got my green card, I think I joined this, it was Good Morning America or something, I can't even remember. I had this conversation with the host, and I was like, well, I'm a green card holder, I'm gonna wait 5 years, I'm gonna become a citizen, blah, blah, whatever. And then out of the blue, she said, you know, if you are married with an American woman, it's only 3 years, right? And I didn't know what she was like trying to say. I said, well, cool, I think I'm gonna wait. I promise y'all, the next day I was getting so much marriage proposals from everywhere. Not only from women. Yeah, it was from everywhere. People were taking pictures of their houses, sending to me. I guess I'm really nasty. Anyway, yes, I'm a little kids here. But throughout all this, right, I was always praying. Every night, every morning, the only thing, obviously I prayed about so many things. But I think that the one thing that I really wanted to pray was about, I just wanted to be able to see my family again. It's been 11 years. And there's nothing, obviously everyone knows there's nothing more important than God and family. So I was praying every day. I was like, God, please let me see my family one last time. This is the only thing I want. And now, I'm here standing, right? I realized that God had answered my prayers. This morning, when I walked in to this church, our pastor, I'm trying to see where he is.
Right here.
Yes. I was talking about love. I was talking about family. And he touched me so much, actually. We were having a conversation with Marcy today at lunch. One thing that really stood out for me was just love. I don't care if you're Muslim or you're Christian. Love is just love. I realized that God had answered my prayers because every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, I get so many invites from true patriots, true Americans. And I do take them, actually. Every Thanksgiving, I go to one of my American friend's house, and we eat turkey together, and they told me about the tradition of Thanksgiving. And same with Christmas. And when I came here, I had no idea what Christmas was. All I thought was it's gonna be it's gonna be lights everywhere, it's gonna be fun, it's gonna be cool, but every Christmas, I now go to one of my friend's house, and they told me about the true meaning of Christmas. And it does touch my heart. What I'm trying to tell you is my last message to you is thank you. Thank you for being my family. Thank you for standing with me. Because after I got released by NBA, I played 11 years in NBA. I had hundreds of teammates, so many coaches, I had so many friends, right? After I got released, not one of them texted me. Because they were scared. Because they didn't want me to mention their name if I ever give an interview and said, this player supported me, this player texted me, this player did this and that, right? And that actually broke my heart. But you know what? God gave me an even bigger family. So, last thing I want to say, this is actually my second time ever in the church. I want to say my first time. My first time, so the senator from North Dakota, Kevin Kramer, invited me to North Dakota. We did this basketball camp, right? After the basketball camp, we had a speech. I had to give a speech. And they didn't tell me that I was going to do it in a church. Came to a church. Obviously, I'm very nervous. It's my first time ever in a church giving a speech. After my speech, they all got up. They put their hands on the air and they prayed for me and my family. And it was the most amazing, emotional thing I've ever experienced. So now this is my second time, and I just want to say thank you guys for being my family. If you guys want to pray again, I don't know how to lead a prayer, guys, but I don't want to say anything wrong. If you, yes, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for being my American family. That definitely means a lot to me.
I'm so sorry. Let's pray for him. Let's pray. Let's pray. Father, we thank you so much for your love. Mrs. Enes was just Lord, expressing family and love, and we know, God, that you are the definition of love, as your word tells us, God, that that's who you are. You're agape, self-sacrificing. Lord, you love him. Lord, you love him so much, and I just pray that, Lord, you would just continue to touch his heart, and Lord, just be his family. Show him, Lord, the opportunity he has, God, just to enter in and to really know you in even a deeper way than he ever has, and that he would experience, Lord, just that love that would just be shed abroad in his heart, like Romans 5 says. Lord, that you would just minister to him. We thank you, God, for his stands for freedom. He's an inspiration to us, and just recognizing, Lord, the suffering around the world, or just those that are enslaved, those that are just going through such difficulties, and that are believing lies, and they need freedom. They need to know who you are. And I just pray, Lord, that Enes would also just be touched by you, and that he would just know that, Lord, you love him, that we love him. And God, just what a blessing it is just to get to know him here today, and that you would just bless his life, guide him, we pray. Yes. And we ask this in Jesus' most wonderful name. And everyone said, Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Mike. Thank you, Enes. What a great story from Enes, right? Especially, that persecution that he's been through. He, being a Muslim still, has faced more persecution from Muslims and Islamic dictators than we have here in America as Christians. So thank you for putting it on the line in the name of freedom and Western values and all that. So we're going to take a quick offering, so if the ushers could come forward. This goes, as I say each and every time, goes toward bringing our speakers